Hey everyone. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments how you felt about this story. Your support keeps us going and helps us bring more emotional, cinematic tales like this one. Now let's begin. The forest was silent, too silent. Only the distant hum of the wind moved through the tall pine trees, whispering secrets of fear and survival. A young woman named Ilara walked carefully through the overgrown trail, her breath short and uneven. The sun was sinking behind the hills, painting the sky with strokes of gold and crimson. She had been lost for almost 2 days when hope was beginning to fade. Her backpack was half torn, her phone battery dead. The cold was crawling up her spine. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of desperation. She whispered to herself, "Just 1 more mile, and someone has to be out here." Ilara wasn't an adventurer. She was a journalist, chasing a mysterious story about a missing group of hikers in the Wild West forest. But somewhere between courage and curiosity, she had taken a wrong turn, and the forest swallowed her. The night came faster than she expected. Darkness was no longer just an absence of light, it felt alive. Twigs cracked under unseen footsteps. Shadows shifted where there should have been none. She gripped her flashlight, its flickering beam dancing wildly. "Who's there?" she called out. No answer, only the soft rustle of leaves. Then she heard it. A voice, faint, almost drowned by the wind, calling her name. "Ilara?" Her heart froze. "Who's there? How do you know my name?" No reply, only silence. She started running, branches clawing at her arms, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Then suddenly, her foot slipped on wet ground. She fell, tumbling down a small slope, landing beside a fallen log. Her flashlight rolled away, its light dimming into the distance. She groaned in pain but quickly sat up. Okay, just breathe," she muttered, trying to steady herself. But then, she heard a deep growl behind her. Her pulse spiked. She turned slowly and saw 2 glowing eyes watching her from the darkness. A wolf. Its fur shimmered in the moonlight and its low growl shook the air. Ilara froze, whispering, "Please go away." She backed up slowly, her hand trembling. The wolf stepped closer, teeth flashing. Just as it lunged forward, a gunshot thundered through the night. The sound echoed through the forest, scattering birds into the sky. The wolf yelped and vanished into the darkness. Ilara gasped, clutching her chest. Smoke hung in the air. Then a deep, steady voice came from behind her. "You shouldn't be here." She turned and saw him. A man, tall and rugged, with a brown hat tilted low over his eyes. His face was half hidden by the shadow of the brim. A green shirt clung to his broad shoulders, a leather vest over it. He carried a rifle slung over his back and wore a calm, unshaken expression. "Who are you?" Ilara asked, her voice trembling. He stepped forward slowly. "Name's Cole Weston," he said in a low voice, "and you're lucky I was close." Her lips parted. That wolf would have—" "Yeah," he interrupted, "would have made you dinner." Ilara blinked, unsure whether to feel grateful or scared. "I was just looking for help. I didn't mean to." "Forest doesn't care what you mean," Cole said, kneeling to pick up her flashlight. "This place swallows people who don't listen to it." He handed her the flashlight. Their fingers brushed for a brief second. Cold meeting warmth. Something flickered in his eyes, something unspoken. "You got somewhere to stay?" he asked. She shook her head. "I was following the old trail back to town, but I must have taken the wrong turn," he sighed. "Figures. Follow me, my cabin's not far." They walked for nearly 20 minutes through winding paths, the silence between them filled only by the crunch of dried leaves. Cole's presence was steady, like an anchor in the chaos. Ilara couldn't stop glancing at him. There was something about his calmness that made her curious. "You live out here alone?" she finally asked. "Been that way for years," he replied. "Used to work with the rangers, then I stopped." "Why?" He looked at her, then turned away. "Let's just say, I saw enough to make me want silence." Ilara didn't ask more, but she felt there was a story buried deep within him, maybe darker than the forest itself. When they reached his cabin, it stood like a ghost in the mist. Old wood, small porch, dim lantern flickering inside. He opened the door and motioned her in. "Sit," he said simply. "You look like you haven't eaten in days." He poured her a cup of coffee and handed it over. The warmth seeped into her trembling hands. She looked around. The place was filled with maps, ropes, and old photos. "You save people often?" she asked softly. He looked up. "Not anymore." But you saved me. Cole didn't respond. He just stared into the fire, eyes distant, haunted. Outside, thunder rumbled far away. The storm was coming. That night, as the rain began to pour, Alara lay awake on the couch, watching the firelight flicker across the walls. Something about Cole made her feel safe, yet uneasy. Why was he living alone in this wilderness? What secrets was he hiding behind that calm face? She closed her eyes, and in the silence she could hear his slow breathing. Steady, controlled, almost too perfect. But when she finally drifted into sleep, she didn't notice him standing by the window looking out into the darkness, as if expecting something, or someone. The rain didn't stop that night. It fell like an endless curtain of silver, hitting the cabin roof with a rhythm that matched Alara's racing thoughts. She sat by the small window, watching water trickle down the glass. Cole sat across the room, sharpening his knife. Quiet, calm, and unreadable. The crackling fire between them painted his face in flickering orange. He looked both mysterious and lonely, like a man who had seen too much and said too little. Alara finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you ever get tired of the silence? Cole stopped sharpening and looked up. Silence is the only thing that doesn't lie, he said. His answer sent a chill through her. What do you mean? Cole leaned back in his chair. People lie. Words lie. But the forest... He gestured toward the window. It tells you exactly what it is, cruel, cold, honest. Alara stared into the fire. That's a sad way to live. He smiled faintly. Maybe, but it's safe. After a few moments of silence, Alara asked, You said you used to be a ranger. What happened? Cole's jaw tightened. He looked into the flames as if the answer was hidden there. 3 years ago, he began, his voice low and rough. I was part of a rescue unit. A family went missing out here. Husband, wife, little girl. We found the camp torn apart. We searched for days. Alara leaned forward. Did you find them? He paused. The fire cracked, filling the silence between his words. Just the father, Cole said finally. Barely alive, he said. He saw something out here, something that wasn't human. Alara frowned. You don't believe that, do you? Cole's eyes lifted to hers, deep, dark, and full of something she couldn't name. I didn't until that night. A distant howl echoed through the forest, long, low, and haunting. Alara's heartbeat quickened. That sounded close. Cole stood up, grabbed his rifle. Stay inside, he said. Wait, where are you going? Checking the perimeter. If you hear anything strange, don't open that door. Before she could protest, he was gone, swallowed by the rain and mist. Alara stood by the window, watching the faint glow of his lantern fade into the darkness. The storm raged louder, wind howling like a living thing. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow looked alive. Minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. Cole didn't return. She bit her lip, pacing back and forth. Where are you, Cole? She whispered. Then she heard a loud thud on the porch. Her heart froze. Slowly, she crept to the door and peeked through the crack. A figure stood outside, drenched, unmoving. She opened the door just a few inches. Cole? No answer. The figure turned slightly, and in the lightning flash, she saw its face. Not Cole. Someone else. A stranger, his face pale and eyes wild. Help me, he rasped, stumbling forward. Please, he's coming. Alara caught him before he fell. Who? Who's coming? But the man was shaking too hard to speak. His clothes were torn, his arm bleeding. She dragged him inside, locking the door behind her. You're hurt, sit down. The man gasped, looking toward the door in terror. You don't understand. No, he's not who you think he is. Alara froze. Who? The man who lives here, the stranger said, eyes wide. He's not your savior. He's the reason people go missing. The room went silent except for the rain. Alara's hands trembled. That's not true, she said firmly. He saved me from a wolf. The stranger shook his head violently. That's what he does. He finds lost travelers, pretends to help, then they vanish. Her chest tightened. You're lying. I'm not, the man cried, pointing toward the back of the cabin. Check the cellar, you'll see. Before she could respond, the door burst open, and Cole stepped inside, dripping wet, eyes sharp as lightning. What the hell's going on? Alara backed away. Cole, this man, he says... Cole raised his gun instantly, pointing it at the stranger. You've got 5 seconds to explain what you're doing in my house. The stranger raised his hands. I didn't come to fight, I just… Cole fired a warning shot into the floor. The man flinched and fell to his knees. Cole, stop, Ilara shouted. He's hurt! Cole didn't look at her. He's lying, I know who he is. The stranger stared up, terrified. You don't have to do this again. Again. That one word echoed in Ilara's mind like thunder. What does he mean, Cole? She asked, her voice shaking. Cole's jaw clenched. He's one of the people who left me to die years ago. Ilara's eyes darted between them. What are you talking about? Cole lowered the gun slightly, his voice cold. That rescue mission I told you about, this man was there. He ran when things got bad. Because of him, that family never made it. The stranger shook his head. That's not true. You lost control, Cole. You… Enough! Cole roared, slamming the gun on the table. Ilara stepped back, heart pounding. She had no idea who to believe. Outside, thunder cracked again, the sound almost shaking the walls. Hours later, after forcing the injured man into a corner and tending his wound, Cole sat silently by the fire. Ilara stayed on the other side of the room, staring at him, trying to piece together what was true. Finally, she spoke. Cole, why did you never go back to the city? He didn't answer. Why are you still here? Cole finally turned toward her, eyes glinting in the dim light. Because this forest doesn't let go, he said softly. It keeps what it takes. Ilara shivered. That sounds like a curse. He smiled sadly. Maybe it is. Later that night, when both men were asleep and or pretending to be, Ilara couldn't resist the pull of curiosity. She lit a lantern and walked quietly toward the door leading down to the cellar. The wood creaked under her feet. Her hand shook as she opened the latch. A cold draft swept up from below, and the faint smell of earth and something metallic. She descended slowly, one step then another. The dim lantern light revealed shelves lined with tools, ropes, and old equipment. Then she saw something that made her blood run cold. A wall covered in missing person flyers. Dozens of them. Men, women, children, all reported lost in the same forest. Her breath caught. No, it can't be. Then beneath the papers she saw a small photo, her own, taken from her press ID. A floorboard creaked behind her. Couldn't sleep? Cole's voice echoed from the shadows. She spun around, the lantern shaking in her hand. What is this? She whispered. He stepped closer, face half hidden in darkness. I told you, and the forest keeps what it takes. Terror filled her eyes. You knew I was coming here? He didn't answer, only smiled faintly. You were following a story, Ilara. But you didn't realize you were walking straight into it. She took a step back. Stay away from me. Cole sighed. You shouldn't have gone down here. The lantern flickered, the storm raged outside, and somewhere deep within the cabin something moved. Ilara's breath caught as she heard a soft whisper, not Cole's, not the stranger's, from the darkness beyond the cellar wall. Help me. Her eyes widened. She turned toward the sound, realizing there was another door half covered by crates. Before she could reach it, Cole grabbed her wrist. Don't. Who's in there, Cole? She shouted. His eyes hardened. Someone who didn't listen. The thunder cracked so loud it drowned her scream. And in that single flash of lightning, she saw what lay beyond the hidden door. Shapes, shadows, faces she almost recognized. The truth was worse than any story she could have written. The storm had passed, but the silence that followed felt heavier than thunder. Morning light spilled through the cracks of the old cabin, cutting across the floor like thin blades of gold. Ilara sat near the ashes of the dying fire, her mind spinning from what she'd seen in the cellar. Cole moved quietly, making coffee as if nothing had happened. The sound of the kettle was almost peaceful, but for her it was deafening. Ilara finally broke the silence. Those posters downstairs, why do you have them? Cole didn't answer right away. He set 2 mugs on the table, then said quietly, Because I'm still trying to find them. She frowned. Find them? Everyone says they disappeared years ago. He looked up, his eyes tired but honest. They did, but not because of me. He told her everything. The night his rescue team vanished in the woods. The strange lights they'd seen flickering between the trees. The way the forest swallowed all evidence. And the rumor that the land itself was cursed after an old mining company buried toxic waste deep beneath it. I stayed, Cole said, because no one else believed what we saw. The forest isn't evil, Ilara, it's sick. The air, the soil, it changes people, makes them see things. Ilara listened, heart pounding. And the missing hikers? He nodded. I think they found something buried here, and whoever wants it, hidden, will do anything to keep it that way. She remembered the stranger from the night before. That man, he said you were dangerous. Cole sighed. He works for them. He wanted you scared enough to run. They don't want reporters digging around. Ilara leaned back, piecing it all together. So you saved me because they would have found you first, he finished. And I couldn't let that happen again. Before she could respond, a noise echoed outside, an engine. Cole grabbed his rifle, motioning for her to stay low. Through the window, they saw 2 black trucks parked near the trail. Men in dark raincoats stepped out, radios crackling. They found us, Cole muttered. Who are they? Ilara whispered. Old mining contractors, the ones who buried the truth. They slipped out the back door and into the fog-covered forest. The air was still wet and heavy, the trees dripping from the night's rain. Every sound felt magnified, the snap of a twig, the echo of distant footsteps. Cole moved swiftly, guiding her along a hidden path that wound toward the cliffs. There's an old ranger outpost a mile east, he said. If we can reach the radio, we can call for help. Ilara stumbled on a root, but Cole caught her hand before she fell. For a moment, their eyes met, fear and trust crossing paths. Don't let go, he said. I wasn't planning to, she replied, breathless. They reached the ridge just as the sun broke through the clouds. The world below was washed in mist and light. But before they could breathe, a shout came from behind. There they are! The men were close, too close. Bullets cracked through the trees. Cole pulled Ilara behind a boulder, returning fire. Keep your head down. She crouched low, heart hammering. We can't stay here. I know, he said. We'll have to climb. What? He pointed toward a narrow trail zigzagging down the cliff. It's the only way. Without waiting, he grabbed her hand and started down. Rocks crumbled beneath their feet. The drop below looked endless. The gunfire faded behind them, replaced by the roar of a distant waterfall. When they finally reached the bottom, they found the ruins of the old ranger outpost, half collapsed, covered in moss. Cole forced the door open. Inside, dust and cobwebs filled the air. There, he said, pointing to a broken radio on the table. If it still works, we can send a signal. Ilara wiped the dust away, twisting the old dials. It's dead. Cole searched the shelves until he found a small generator. Not for long. He kicked it twice, the engine sputtered, then coughed to life. The radio crackled. Ilara grabbed the mic. This is Ilara Voss, journalist from the Western Times. We're trapped in the Wild West forest. Someone's trying to kill us. Static, then a faint voice. Copy that. Hold your position. Ilara exhaled in relief. They heard us. But Cole's expression stayed grim. That was too quick, too clean. What do you mean? He stared out the window. They're not rescue. They're tracking the signal. Before they could react, headlights appeared through the trees. Cole grabbed Ilara's hand. We need to move, now. They ran through the back exit into the forest, rain beginning to fall again. Thunder rolled above as they sprinted through mud and roots. Behind them, engines roared closer. Ilara's chest burned. Cole, we can't outrun them forever. He stopped suddenly near an old tunnel entrance, half buried and rusted shut. This is it, he said. The old mine. The one that caused all this? He nodded. It's the only place they won't follow. Too dangerous. She hesitated. And if we get trapped inside? He looked at her gently. Then at least we'll know the truth. They slipped inside just as lightning struck, sealing them in half-darkness. The air was damp, filled with the scent of rust and stone. Ilara's flashlight beam danced across walls marked with warning signs. Toxic material. Keep out. As they moved deeper, they found crates, old papers, and containers leaking faint green vapor. This is what they buried, Cole said quietly. And this is why people disappear. Ilara took photos, her hands trembling. This could expose everything. Cole smiled faintly. Now you see why I stayed. Before she could respond, she noticed something. A small door at the end of the tunnel with a faint red light flickering above it. Cole, what is that? He frowned. That wasn't here before. They approached carefully. The light blinked twice, then stopped. Cole opened the door. Inside was a narrow chamber lined with files, computers, and a single glowing screen showing satellite maps of the forest. Ilara gasped. Someone's still monitoring this place. Cole stared at the screen, realization dawning. They never stopped. Suddenly, the speaker crackled to life. A cold voice echoed through the chamber. "Welcome back, Ranger Weston." Cole froze. "No." Ilara looked at him. "Who is that?" He swallowed hard. "My old commander." The voice continued, calm and sharp. "You should have stayed buried, Cole. You and your little journalist friend just reopened a file that was meant to die." Cole's eyes hardened. "You turned this forest into a graveyard." "Necessary measures," the voice replied. "You wouldn't understand." Ilara gripped Cole's arm. "We have to get out of here." He nodded. "Not yet. If I can transmit the data, we can prove everything." "Cole, trust me," he said. "You wanted your story. Here it is." As he began transferring files to a small drive, footsteps echoed in the tunnel behind them. The pursuers had found the entrance. "Time's up," Ilara whispered. Cole pulled the drive free and handed it to her. "If anything happens to me, get this to the authorities, promise me." Her throat tightened. "No, we both get out, together." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "You really are stubborn." "And you really talk too much," she said, gripping his hand. They ran toward the exit, the tunnel collapsing behind them as explosions echoed deeper in the mine. Dust filled the air, stones falling like rain. Cole shielded Ilara with his body as debris crashed around them. Finally, they burst through the tunnel mouth just as the ground gave way. The mine collapsed behind them in a roar of dust and flame. They lay on the ground gasping, covered in mud and soot, but alive. Cole turned to her, smiling weakly. "Told you I'd get you out." Ilara laughed breathlessly. "You're insane." "Maybe," he said, "but you've got the story of a lifetime." As dawn broke, helicopters appeared on the horizon. Real rescue this time. Ilara looked at Cole, eyes soft. "What will you do now?" He stood, watching the sunlight cut through the fog. "Maybe finally leave this forest behind." She nodded. "You deserve peace." He looked back at her, the ghost of a smile on his face. "And you deserve the truth." The storm had passed, but the forest was still breathing with tension. The wind carried the smell of rain and smoke as Cole and Ilara stood outside the old cabin, the place where everything had started. Ilara's leg was bandaged now, and she leaned against a wooden post. Cole had spent the entire night keeping her alive. His hands trembling, his face cut and bruised, but his eyes filled with determination. The morning light broke through the clouds, golden and soft. It touched Ilara's face as she opened her eyes. "Where are we?" she asked weakly. "Safe, and for now," Cole said. "But they'll come looking for us." "They?" She frowned. "The ones who built the traps," Cole replied. "I used to work for them until I found out what they were really doing." Ilara's heartbeat quickened. "You mean all those missing people?" He nodded, shame flickering across his face. "They were testing fear, studying human survival. It wasn't rescue work, it was cruelty." A long silence followed, broken only by raindrops dripping from the cabin roof. Ilara looked at him, eyes filling with both fear and sympathy. "Then why did you save me?" "Because I couldn't let another innocent die because of me," he said quietly. "I owed this forest a life." Hours later, as they prepared to leave, a low rumble echoed from the east. Engines. Cole's face hardened. "They found us," he whispered. Ilara stood, still weak but resolute. "Then we finish it." They ran through the woods, branches snapping beneath their feet. The forest seemed alive and whispering, warning, guiding them. Ahead, the faint glow of morning sunlight touched a riverbank. If they could reach it, they'd escape into the main valley. But the sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. Cole stopped suddenly, turning to face the sound. "Go!" he shouted to Ilara. "Follow the river, don't look back." "No," she cried, "not after everything." He smiled, tired, broken yet peaceful. Someone has to stop them, tell the world the truth. Before she could protest, he pressed a small drive into her hand. Encrypted files. "Everything they did is in here, make it count." Then as men emerged from the fog with flashlights and weapons, Cole charged toward them, drawing their fire away from Ilara. She screamed his name, but he didn't look back. Ilara reached the river moments later, clutching the drive to her chest. Behind her, gunfire echoed through the forest, then silence. Tears blurred her vision as she stumbled into the water, letting the current pull her downstream. The sunlight grew brighter, warmer, as if the forest itself was letting her go. Days later, she awoke in a hospital bed. Authorities surrounded her, asking questions. She handed them the drive. Within weeks, the story broke worldwide. Secret forest experiment exposed, one man's sacrifice saves dozens. Ilara watched the news in silence, her heart breaking yet glowing with pride. Outside her window, the same golden light filtered through the trees, and for a moment, she swore she saw a shadow standing by the edge of the wood or wearing a cowboy hat. She smiled softly. "You kept your promise," she whispered. "Sometimes a stranger doesn't just save your life, they give it a meaning."